Hey guys, I'm Sun. I'm a privacy and security researcher, and you're watching the Privacy Guides. Yeah, I haven't published in ages, and I am so happy to be back. Today's episode is a behind the scenes. If you're new to this channel, behind the scenes are clearly labeled with this pink outline. Behind the scenes are kind of where I tell you guys about the journey of creating this project and also kind of share what goes into a project like this. So yeah, today's a behind the scenes. First things first, I have to admit that last episode was really an emotional one, and I kind of disappeared afterwards, and that got a lot of you wondering where I was and if I was doing okay. Some of you reached out by email and asked how I was doing. That really meant a lot to me. Truth is, I was doing fine. I was just exploring a whole bunch of rabbit holes and, checking things off my bucket list, which I'll share with you guys in a moment. But I do feel a responsibility in the future to let you guys know that I'm doing fine when something like this happens. I can't just vanish. So yeah, sorry about that, really. Well, the good news is I was exploring a lot of rabbit holes, and I have a ton of cool content coming your way. But I want to kind of share with you guys what I've been up to. So yeah, a lot of you have gone onto the sunknutson.com website, especially the reference material section of it, where you get to, copy paste all of those command lines that I talk about in episodes. I want to mention that this content is actually updated on a regular basis. So when you guys watch an episode, what's on the reference material may have changed, and that reference material is the source de vérité, is the source of truth. That's like the most recent stuff. I need to add some kind of versioning thing to this so that you guys can see what has changed and stuff like this. That's a feature that I want to add to the CMS. But while we're talking about that CMS, initially I wanted to publish all of this reference material on Medium. But Medium had a whole bunch of shortcomings. First things first, I like writing this stuff using Markdown because I'm a nerd, and Markdown is the best. If you don't know Markdown, you can look it up. It's essentially a syntax that allows you to put stuff in headings, bold, italic, put images, stuff like this, in very low-level formatting language that I really like. And I also wanted this to be available on GitHub because I wanted the community to be able to submit issues or pull requests so that together we can make sure that this content lives on and is as private and secure as possible. And some of you have submitted issues and pull requests, and I'm really thankful. While we're at it, you guys have starred the Privacy Guides repository on GitHub, and that is super helpful because the more a project is starred, the more newcomers will value it, will think that it's an established project. So starring this is super helpful, and thanks to the contributors that have made this content better, and thanks to everyone who has submitted issues that are really helpful. I mean, issues help me understand how you guys are experiencing this content, and sometimes you run into issues, especially on the new Mac M1s with Big Sur, and I will answer you guys on GitHub. Sorry for not being up to date on this. I have a lot of following up to do, but I will, I promise. So back to the CMS. Medium didn't work, so I had to build my own, and that's what I've done. So this CMS here, everything you see here, it kind of looks like Medium because, to be honest, it is inspired by Medium. It has those really nice in-page anchors. It has this really cool zoom feature here, and you can just essentially copy paste stuff. So I really wanted a CMS that I could develop and fine-tune to the needs of this project, and I've done it. And what I've done over the past month or so is I've made that CMS incredibly more efficient. So assets, if we look at an image, so for instance here, this image here, well on GitHub, on GitHub, this image is huge. It's huge. It's the original, okay? And feeding this to someone who's viewing this on a smaller device or on a screen that isn't 4K, that's ridiculous. It's not optimized at all. So I went about creating an open source tool a while back called ChartWatch, which is able to watch folders and resize assets automatically to multiple different sizes. And I'll link that in the description. And this makes it so that using more recent HTML standards, I can feed the image that is the right size or the right whatever for the person's browser. And that's what I've done. So assets now are way optimized. I think someone who's watching one of those pages, probably it takes like 60% less bandwidth. So that is really cool. And also images are lazy loaded. So when I load like this an image, you'll see that it starts by showing this kind of blurred version of the image called a blur hash. And then it shows the original image. And this is also done using lazy loading, meaning if there was an image lower here, it wouldn't be loaded unless the person is actually viewing the image. So yeah, while I'm at it, that CMS, a friend of mine, also a contributor to the privacy guides, asked, hey son, would it be possible for me to use that CMS for my own research when I'm publishing? And that really got me thinking. I mean, I've been pouring enormous amounts of love and energy into the Privacy Guides project, and I was kind of reflecting on ways that I could kind of monetize that in order to sustain the project. So one way of doing that is through donations, more on this in a second. But another is, perhaps I'm not the only one who loves the idea of having a CMS that kind of looks and feels like Medium, but that is Markdown, that supports Bitcoin payments, that uses Git for versioning, stuff like that. So yeah, I've been considering taking that CMS and making it a SaaS that you guys could pay a small monthly fee for. Are there any of you who would like that? Is that something that I should bring to the world? I mean, this CMS, I could design it as a product that you guys could pay for if that's something that you think is interesting. So please let me know in the comments. And I would love to know kind of how much that should cost. I mean, the price I have in mind right now is kind of like $9 a month. But yeah, I mean, is that too little? Is that too much? Let me know. I would love to know. And I mean, others being able to use this would make me so proud. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only nerd that likes managing this. And by the way it would work is all of this would be written in Visual Studio Code or another editor of your choice. It would use Git to do Git push, and then I would automatically deploy this on the website, optimizing assets and all of this stuff. So yeah, let me know what you think. So back to the actual website or CMS. A million things have changed on the website. Usually they're pretty subtle, but I am really excited about those. The number one thing that has changed is PeerTube and YouTube are now equal citizens on the website. Initially, YouTube kind of took all the place. If you were looking at those thumbnails and you clicked on one, it would bring you to YouTube. I know some of you prefer watching this stuff on PeerTube. So all of this here now has both YouTube and PeerTube links, which means that you guys get to choose which platform you prefer to watch the content. And that is really neat. In order to pull that off, initially I was using the YouTube RSS feed in order to update this, but now I'm using Tube Manager. So I mentioned Tube Manager in the past. I wanted a way to manage all of the videos or episodes that are published on both YouTube and PeerTube, and I wanted to be able to manage those videos over time. So right now we're probably at about 60 episodes. And for instance, say I wanted to add, let's just have a look here. So look, let's just look at this episode here. Say I wanted to add to the description of all episodes a support link. Initially, I would have had to go on to each video one by one using the interfaces of PeerTube and YouTube and manually update them all, which requires a huge amount of time. And honestly, I'm not even sure I would go through this kind of process because of that. So instead of this, the really cool thing about Tube Manager is it uses a JSON data set. So this is kind of like going to be really nerdy here, but for those of you who are into this, I think you're going to appreciate it. So it uses JSON to store all of those videos. So for instance, this one here, how to configure Strong Swan client, blah, blah, blah. And if I go about adding this little support snippet, and by the way, if you're using Visual Studio Code, I did create some schemas to make this really effortless. Well, you can just copy paste this on all of those videos And then there's a command that is tube manager publish, and then that will publish this update to all of the episodes on both platforms. That means that adding those support links was really a piece of cake thanks to Tube Manager. But in order to pull that off, I had to, update it. So I just pushed, for those of you who might be using Tube Manager, I just pushed a new release 0.4.0, which has a breaking change. So please keep an eye on this. But yeah, this project is open source. It's something that I created in order for others to embrace PeerTube and share content both on YouTube and PeerTube without having to go through doing additional work. So yeah, Tube Manager has this JSON dataset that I can also use to generate this, and that I can use to generate an RSS feed of both the YouTube links and PeerTube links. So more on RSS in a future episode, but for those of you who know what RSS is, it's a way for you guys to subscribe to this content without relying on third parties, and that is really cool. I think I'm going to create an episode just on RSS. So yeah, the CMS is way better now. I'm considering making it available to you guys for a small monthly fee. Let me know what you think. I think I'm forgetting things. Damn it, son. Oh yeah. Woo. One of the rabbit holes that I've been exploring like crazy over the past month is Bitcoin. So I'm sure you guys have seen it in the news. I mean, the price of Bitcoin is going up. It's being adopted by Tesla, by PayPal, by Square. It's becoming more mainstream. I really like the values of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a decentralized monetary system that allows people like you and I to transact without relying on third parties-ish. We do rely on miners and on the Bitcoin, decentralized infrastructure, but we get to exchange money or value without relying on a bank, without relying on the state. That is something that is really, really liberating. The problem with Bitcoin, I'm sure that a lot of you feel, is if we are going to be our own bank, it's kind of a cliche sentence, sorry for it, but if we're going to be our own bank, well, banks have vaults. They have security. They have resilience built into the system. By the way, banks don't really hold the money that is in our accounts either, through the money multiplier effect or whatever this thing is called. But nonetheless, being your own bank is a huge responsibility. Back in the days where Bitcoin was worth peanuts, well, it wasn't much to think about. But now that a Bitcoin is worth about 50,000 US, well, if you so happen to have a Bitcoin, how are you securing it? How are you sleeping at night? How are you handling backups? Are you using multisig? What is multisig? Are you using your daily driver, with Electrum as your wallet? There are a million things to think about, and those puzzles are extremely interesting to someone like me who spends a huge amount of time researching privacy and security. So in the upcoming weeks, I am going to be sharing a mini-series on how I think about setting up a Bitcoin wallet that is secure, how to do those things. And what I've done over the past month or so is I went about creating my own hardened multi-sig wallet for donations. Some of you asked a while back, hey son, do you have a Bitcoin address? We would love to help support the privacy guides. Well, finally, I've done it. I've created it. It took forever. I think I published last episode talking about Bitcoin in October 2020. It took forever, but I've done it. And I've documented the process so that I can share it with you guys. And if you guys are not into Bitcoin and you're like, son, I don't give a fuck about Bitcoin, no problem. The thought process that goes into this applies to everything. And by the way, there is some incredibly smart people working on Bitcoin, and a lot of Bitcoin's fundamentals are tied to cryptography. They're tied to concepts that we can apply in pretty much all of computing. So I think that this series is going to be really interesting to anyone who cares about privacy and security. So that will come. So yeah, I mentioned me pouring love and energy into this project. If you like what you're seeing and can afford a donation, that is incredibly helpful. I have this Bitcoin address on the website. If you're into PGP, you can also make sure that the address that is actually there was signed by my public key. Actually, what I've just said, if that was Chinese, is that racist? That's not what I meant. If it's, when that expression is bad, sorry about that. If what I've just said makes no sense at all, oh, sorry. I'll explain it. Cryptographic signatures or private public-key cryptography, those are concepts that are so interesting. So yeah, I have a lot of content to come. I also want to teach you guys how to use a YubiKey. I want to teach you guys how to set up Raspberry Pis as read-only cold devices to do cryptographic stuff on. I have a million things that I want to share. So all of this will be coming shortly in regular Privacy Guides episodes. So yeah, I'll see you soon. Bye.